with Resident Evil Requiem coming out in 2 weeks, I decided what better way to get in preparation for some great Resident Evil action than to do a Resident Evil tier list. We've got everything here from the OG mainline games to the spin-offs to the remakes, as well as to the arcade shooters that you can only play when you inserted $1 into the coin machine. We're gonna be ranking from don't know / haven't played F to S. And just remember, this is just my opinion. If one of you guys like one of these shit games, well, that's your prerogative. So let's get into it. Starting off, let me actually add another row. Starting off, we have the OG Resident Evil. So, considering the fact that this game literally started it all, I kind of make the same argument with like when I was doing a tier list for Assassin's Creed. This game, why is A below B? What the hell? Resident Evil will always be at the top of the list for the franchise. I can't say it's good enough to be an S because it's objectively just, it's not that good, but it's good enough to set the standard for what the franchise is. And for that reason, I'm going to stick it in A because it did its job well. It may not necessarily age well, but it's good enough that belongs a spot right below the cream of the crop at the top. Resident Evil 2. Now this one is a hallmark masterpiece. Catapulted the story and the direction of the game. Kind of like what Assassin's Creed 2 did for Assassin's Creed as a franchise. It's the same thing here. Resident Evil 2 was the introduction of Leon and enhancing the mechanics of the game for what it was. This belongs in S tier. It catapulted the franchise. Now, Resident Evil 3. Okay. Now, I might get some hate for this, but I really don't think... I think it's a very good game. Let me start off by saying that. But I don't think it added much more than Resident Evil 2. But I do think it did a lot of things right in its continuation story. It's kind of like one of those things where, you know, it's the third mainline title, but it wasn't anything that substantially made it better. I do think that the introduction of Nemesis, I know it wasn't the first Stalker. I mean, I know Mr. X was the one who got us that, but the story itself, Resident Evil 3, is enough for me to put this in A. Also, I feel like shit. I think I might be coming down with something, so if I sound like I'm dying, it's because I'm kind of feeling it right now. Kind of going through it. Resident Evil Survivor. I just don't know enough about this game to make a judgment call on it. Quite frankly, I can't say anything on it. Code Veronica, immediately going to S. Also, this is your spoiler warning right now. This is your spoiler. Obviously, I'm already just spoiling stuff by mentioning, you know, components of the game. The fact that this game is getting a remake in the works is enough for me to justify it in S. Well, besides the fact that it's just objectively, it is such a freaking good game. The story's amazing. The plot's amazing. There's a reason why this one is such a fan-beloved game. It belongs in S, no question. I'm gonna be honest, I don't even know what this one is. Let's see if we can do a little Jarvis zoom in. Resident Evil Survivor 2 I didn't even know there was a Survivor 2 Code Veronica. I didn't even know there was one. I've never heard about this title, so I'm gonna throw in don't know, haven't played. And same with Resident Evil Gaiden, don't know, haven't played. Resident Evil 1 Remake. This one I think did what Resident Evil OG, you know, Biohazard did initially. It made it better with the remake. I guess it's not a remake. It's a remaster. I guess. I think that's the proper definition of it, but took what Resident Evil OG did and made it better. It made it better graphically. It made it creepier. It made it a lot more mechanically easier with its you know, the fixed camera gameplay. I think Resident Evil Remaster, I think that's what it's properly called, right? The Resident Evil. Yeah. Okay. So it's technically a remake. I guess it is technically a remake. Okay. It's a remake. It's not a remake in like the same way that they have done with Resident Evil 2 through 4, but visually, mechanically, made the game way more terrifying, way better of an experience. It goes an S. That's my take. Resident Evil 0. A nice prelude to, you know, I know this one's kind of hit or miss for some people. I know not everyone loves it, but I think I'm a fan of Resident Evil 0. I think it's a nice twist on, well, it keeps the main archetype of the game, the stylization and the mechanics. And I think it has a good enough story. I'm not going to throw it an S because I do think the slugs do kind of make it a little strange. I might render my points moot when I talk about other titles like Resident Evil Village. But I do like what they did with this. I do like the precursor, the idea of it being a prelude to the main story of, you know, Resident Evil 1. I'm gonna throw this one an A. Okay, now what are we looking here? This is Dead Aim. Never heard of it. Outbreak. I've heard of both Outbreak games, but I don't feel confident enough to comment on them. So for that reason, I will also throw it don't know, haven't played. Oh baby. I mean, do I even need to like say anything for this one? Do I even need to say anything for this one? Like genuinely. Now if you want to talk about like a revolutionizing of the game and in you know horror genre and the franchise itself, there's no question. There's no question. There are very few that like I said it earlier. Like I'm not gonna be ranking these in terms of like S plus, S minus. There's a few that I will, but Resident Evil 4 is one of the ones that is gonna permanently sit at the front and the top of this franchise. The changing of the stylization of the game and making it that like kind of over the shoulder. If I'm not mistaken, Resident Evil 4 actually revolutionized the horror action genre altogether with the new camera style. A fixed camera, you can't move when you're shooting, the general eerie vibe of the game, and generally what they did with Leon's new story and shift going from, you know, Raccoon City to the backwoods villages of Spain with the unique enemies, the Las Plagas, the creepy, just dread-inducing aura of the village and the castle. I mean, this game was and still is a 10 out of 10 and belongs in S tier. Not just for what it did for Resident Evil, but you know the horror gaming genre altogether. Resident Evil 5, unfortunately, it's a solid game, but I also think it went more towards the action route than the horror aspect of Resident Evil. It's still a solid game, it's still a fun game. It had the co-op aspect, which is enjoyable, you know, playing with friends. But I can't say this game is fantastic. It's good. It's good. And for that reason, I'm going to throw it in B. I do enjoy what's become of the Chris boulder punching Redfield meme. So that still lives on rent free in the community's mind. So we take that. Next, we have Resident Evil, The Mercenaries 3D. Huh? Okay, this one's going to go in don't know, haven't played, because I know The Mercenaries, but what the fuck is The Mercenaries 3D? Interesting. Okay. Next we have The Umbrella Chronicles. So I did a little bit of digging on this one. This one looks like a Wii game. Unfortunately, also one I can't speak on. It seems like one of those like line shooters that they kind of direct you through, but I can't tell. Okay, Resident Evil Revelations. This one was a spin-off series that I actually thoroughly enjoyed when I was first getting into Resident Evil and just horror games in general. And it reintroduced some character, you know, some of the more beloved characters, and having their own, you know, separate stories aside from the main adventure of, you know, Umbrella and whatever's going on in the mainline story. So, you know, I actually really enjoyed these, and it was pretty spooky. It had a solid story. I'm not gonna say it did anything spectacular, but they were really fun. And for that, I'll throw it in B because they were good games. The Resident Evil Revelations was a good game. Resident Evil, The Dark Side Chronicles. Another Wii game that I just don't know anything about. There's just a lot of these fucking Wii games for the Resident Evil that I just didn't even know about. Like, so for like the Wii and just weird spin-offs that just never stuck, I guess. Like Resident Evil Survivor? What? Resident Evil Gaiden? I feel like some of these people will know about and will read me in the comments, but I just don't. I just never saw them. I'm gonna be a fucking Resident Evil fan. I guess I'm a fraud. Resident Evil 6. All right, carry on. Resident Evil Revelations 2. I'm also gonna throw this one in right next to 1. I don't remember. I mean, these two blend together so much in my mind, but they're generally the same, but nothing really distinctive that can be like one should be an A or C over the other. They're both okay. They're both good. Resident Evil. Oh my gosh, that's what I think it is. Operation Raccoon City. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy. Is it bad enough that it needs to belong in F with Resident Evil 6? Or does it sit in D? Oh, this is tough. I think it deserves to sit in an F with Resident Evil 6. It really does. It really does. Like, it was just such a fucking poor excuse for a game. It just was a flop off rip, man. Umbrella Corps. This one's another one of those weird multiplayer trying to do more than it really could ever be. Wasn't anything special and then died not very long after release. This one wasn't as big of a flop as Operation Raccoon City, but it's still not good. I'm gonna throw it in D. Pretty fraudulent set of titles right here. Kind of fitting that they were next to each other down here. But Resident Evil 2 Remake. Oh my goodness. This one, when they introduced the remake branding of Resident Evil, when it started with Resident Evil 2 and led to what we have with 3 and 4, it just, there's another way to say this, and then it just knocked it out of the park and just reinvigorated a spark for Resident Evil, because we got Resident Evil 7 in 2017 and we got RE2 I think not long after Resident Evil 2 Remake. Yeah, we got it in 2019. We got it in 2019. Just like 7 and 4 OG, it kind of like ignited the franchise all over again. This really was a work of art and kind of showed what you could do with some new tech, and it really just kind of made Resident Evil scary again. It made it a fun. It made Resident Evil something to look forward to in the horror genre. Because all we had at the time, generally speaking, was kind of Outlast. This was the rekindling that we needed for the Resident Evil franchise. This one brought back a cult classic and made it better. Now, honestly, people can argue like if it was better than the OG, but when you have that kind of discussion and that kind of debate whether the OG or Resident Evil 2 Remake is better, I think you can say it did it justice, and this without a doubt belongs in S. Resident Evil 3 unfortunately took a step back. Way too short of a game. Wasn't as scary. Didn't do anything with the momentum that Resident Evil 2 Remake did. This one was kind of a bit lackluster. What they did with it isn't enough to warrant putting it any higher than average in C, really. Oh baby, here we go. Here we go. Another one. I have debated this with people. I have discussed, argued. I really think RE4 Remake is up there with OG in terms of like you can argue which one is better. And in my opinion, I think the remake is better than the OG. Now let me make something clear though. The OG is a timeless classic. It will never die. It will never not be good. At this point, I think you can make an argument on preference as to which one is better, because I think this one is so freaking good that it did one of the greatest games of all time justice. I really, in my heart, believe that. So, I'm sticking RE4 Remake up there in S. And frankly, I'm going to put RE7 Biohazard up there with it. Right next to those two, because we have been devoid of a new Resident Evil for several years, if I'm not mistaken. I want to check when RE6 came out. RE6 came out in 2012. So yeah, RE6 came out in 2012. RE7 came out in 2017. And at that point, no one really knew if we were going to get any other Resident Evil game because RE6 was such a massive flop and so bad that when we got RE7, it not just because it was the next title after, you know, this failure, but just like the change in, you know, making our Resident Evil a first-person game, the trailer, the demo, and the new engine, the Resident Evil engine that made the game genuinely terrifying. Resident Evil 7 was so scary, and I tell my chat this all the time. Games like Resident Evil 7 makes me claustrophobic, if that makes sense. The tight corridors, you feel enclosed, you feel vulnerable, even with your guns, you feel vulnerable. The game takes away your sense of survival, and even with the guns, it takes away that. You feel locked in, both literally and metaphorically. It revived the franchise. It really did. And with not just me, who, you know, loved the title and loves the game, I mean, every other person I think would agree. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, I think, belongs at the top and the cream of the crop with, you know, the high end of these games. I think this is one of those titles that deserves to be, like, when I say like S+, it's S+. It's up in the upper half of the S category. Resident Evil Village, I have a bit of biases for. I really enjoyed the game. I thought it was creepy. Obviously, when you play it 5 separate times like I have, stops getting scary. But I think it's a very good game. It takes a very drastic, weird turn with the, you know, the Lycans and Mother Miranda. But I think the plot was cool. I think it puts a nice little bow on the the Winters saga with the Winter storyline, and it does add to what Resident Evil Biohazard did. I'm not gonna say it did something better in terms of like the actual the scariness of it, like the scare factor. But it's a good game. It's not anything incredible where it doesn't. I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. It's nothing that will warrant calling it one of the greatest games of the franchise, because it's not, but it's good. And for that reason, on the high end of it, and for that reason, I'm going to throw it an A. For that reason, I'm going to throw it an A. Obviously, 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks. I'm hoping that this game is going to be a knockout of the park. I've been looking forward to this for a year now. Ever since the trailer came out, leaks came out for it. Oh my god, I've been trying to avoid the leaks like a plague. Resident Evil Resistance, another failure. Another goddamn failure, man. So negligible. So negligible. RE-verse, another one. I'm gonna throw it in D just because conceptually it sounded super enticing, but there was literally no player base. Honestly, I think that D might be too generous because it never even took off. It never even took off. It never had a chance to get its feet off the ground. I'm gonna throw in low D, high F, you know. But that's my list. Some of y'all might agree. Some of y'all might disagree. But this is mine. You can suck my balls if you don't like it. If you don't like it, make your own. And tell me what you think in the comments, because your opinion is going to differ than mine. But as far as it stands for me, I think Resident Evil 4 Remake, OG, then 7. Hate the cake for the franchise. And that's all I got for you guys today. I love y'all. Thanks for hanging out with me. And as always, gang, stay safe, stay beautiful, and get out of here.